Parents with nanny cams, what have you caught your babysitter doing? This was my equivalent of pre-K. All the kids were regressing in their movement ability and getting really fat, so they set up spy equipment. Turns out one carer was doubling every baby's food portions and forcefully overfeeding them. Wish I had a nanny cam. My stepsister was watching my brother with disabilities for me. She would dump out the contents of his capsules, meds, and use them later. Didn't find out about it till he started having seizures constantly and ended up in the hospital for the second time. This isn't a bad one. My parents caught the babysitter carrying our 60 pounds golden retriever like he was a baby. Once, at the very last moment when no other babysitter was available, I hired one that as sort or notorious for not being good, not dangerous or anything like leaving the child unattended, but like the type where she would not console the child if they were crying. Punish them for doing small things. While away I was very suspicious, so I continuously was glancing at the baby cam. The babysitter was playing with him, singing songs and completely engaging him well beyond the way you would expect somebody who was considered a bad babysitter to act. Essentially, what happened was the babysitter got hired by a crazy parent who didn't like her at all, so they spread a bunch of mumbo jumbo through the neighborhood. When I came home I gave her a very large tip and she was the one I always hired whenever I needed a babysitter. TDLR. At the last moment hired a babysitter that was rumored to be bad. Turns out she was a really good babysitter who once got hired by a crazy parent who didn't like her, so they spread a bunch of BS. I've been a pretty regular weekend nanny for an amazing family for 4 years now. They've cycled through a couple different weekday nannies since I've been with them. There is only one monitor and it's in the little dude's room. Once the mom showed me on the camera why they let one go. Little dude said, "Mommy said I don't have to do that." And the nanny snapped back, "Well, it doesn't matter. Mommy is a bitch." And then dragged the kid out of the room by his shirt. Super fired. Not a nanny cam because this happened in the 90s and I don't think we had them in Scotland then, but my mum came home early one day because she had become suspicious of our nanny as my sister, and I never slept after a day with her. She found both my sister and I in bed in the middle of the day. Turned out my nanny had been dosing us up with child medicine to make us sleep all day so she could sit and do nothing. This isn't an answer. More of an additional question. But how much of the video do parents with nanny cams watch? Or do they watch them on speed playback and adjust the speed to normal if they see something suspicious or noteworthy? We have an outdoor camera. If we need to go back to check something, we watch on super fast forward. My mom put a nanny cam on my sister's bedroom. The only disturbing thing my mom allegedly saw was the babysitter crying while holding my sister. Turns out the babysitter just had a miscarriage the day before. Well, a case which happened near where I live. Woman used to work. Husband out of country. Had a 2-year-old kid. They hired a nanny to look after him during daytime. Day by day kid started looking malnourished. So she set up a spy cam. Apparently the lady used to bring her kid and feed him all the food left for the kid she was supposed to babysit. Then she would feed the kid cheap biscuits. She was promptly handed over to police. My story isn't that interesting, but I have a camera to check in on my rabbit when I'm not there. The biggest surprises were mostly just how almost nobody followed my pet sitting instructions. The one exception, ironically, was my brother, who claimed to hate the rabbit and always wanted to get rid of it. I got an alert one day that my camera had detected movement while my bro was there taking care of him, and I decided to take a peek. I opened the app connected to the camera and saw my bro walk into my room, lay on the floor, and start playing with my rabbit. It just warmed my heart. First rule of siblings: never show your siblings that you love them or their pets. A friend caught his nanny hitting their kid for interrupting that day's binge of the TV show Friends. A little late to the party, but here goes. My mom suspected our maid of stealing the silverware. And she's just f***ing nosy. Anyway, the maid was indeed stealing the silverware. I think that ended up being overshadowed by my dad f***ing her. Though, thanks for the gold. Who knew my dad's infidelity would one day pay off? Not me, but my aunt's friend set up a nanny cam because she noticed that every time she changed her child's diaper the child would start crying a lot more than usual. Turns out when they watched the nanny change her diaper, she would use Clorox wipes if they were nearby instead of grabbing the baby wipes. Edit. For anyone wondering what happened afterward, they fired the nanny immediately and the father became a stay-at-home dad. We have a security camera in my bedroom for my free roam bunny so we can keep an eye on her whilst on work. If we go on holiday act. Well, my dad is 50 and is a big bloke who acts like he doesn't like pets. Came over to visit one day whilst I was out. He went in my room and crouched down calling the bunny. He spent an hour trying to pet the rabbit and kept repeating in a soft voice, "I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to pet you and see how fluffy you are." He just about shit himself when I spoke through the security camera to tell him she's very fluffy. Edit. Thank you for my first gold. My family bought one to see our dogs when we leave on vacation twice a year. It's one where they can hear us and we thought it'd be great. We hardly use it. We also asked our mate to dog sit for us while we were out. Once when we looked at the feed we saw the dog sitter there a solid 30 minutes early just petting the dogs and playing with them. She's since retired from working. But she was the sweetest old lady and we love her. Another time my dad left a wad of cash on top of the washing machine, about $600, and she put a rubber band around it with a note saying he misplaced it. We once caught the nanny putting charcoal to feed them as a snack. This woman claimed that she thought it was a snack. It was in a charcoal box. My brothers were 4. Babies can have little charcoal. Chasing my cats around with a broom. Hitting them. She's since been fired. From a cannon, I hope. I was the kiddo. My mom often tells the story of how she watched me give a big ol' hug to my babysitter who just broke down out of nowhere after serving me lunch. Turns out her dad had died a month back and it just wasn't a good day for her. I still remember you. Ems. Yancy. I hope you're doing just fine now. The couple I sat for had a nanny cam in their living room. The kind that went in bears. They got me on video giving their 2-year-old the Heimlich after he tried to eat a rock. We have a nanny cam and we caught our nanny dancing with our baby, making him laugh and giving him kisses. She's the best and the cameras gave us the peace of mind to know she really treats him like her own. I pay my neighbor to feed the stray cats in my garden when I'm away for days at a time. And the camera caught my neighbor trying to come in by pole, bamboo, vaulting one time. He nailed it. Amazingly. Not mine. But my friend's. We watched her daughter's nanny playing with her, singing to her and just being so lovely. She was so good that all the others' mums wanted to hire her. I got a nanny cam to keep an eye out for my elderly grandfather, especially when the home aides were there. My grandfather started asking for lots of cash and couldn't remember what was happening to it. A brooch that my aunt was supposed to get disappeared. And then I heard reports of my grandfather being inappropriate with some of the home health aides. He was busted squirreling away his medication that he was supposed to be taking in his chair, giving money to an aide and sexually harassing another aide. Not a parent. Caught my little sister's babysitter catching a good hour-long nap at 2 PM while my 1-year-old sister was up having the time of her life destroying my PlayStation. We didn't have a nanny cam, but my mom set up the camcorder when she suspected our babysitter was stealing, and then caught the babysitter stealing. She returned most of the stuff when my mom threatened to report her to the police. I think she should still have reported her anyway. Now she probably just went on stealing at other people's places. I think she learned her lesson. This isn't something that I caught a babysitter doing, but I remember that I once saw on TV the case of some parents that went with her baby to the doctor because she cried a lot for apparently no reason. The doctor told them that she looked really stressed and asked them if they were doing something that could make her act like that. They didn't. Then the doctor and the parents noticed some really tiny dots in the girl's belly and they had no idea where they came from. The babysitter told them that she had no idea, but they didn't believe her and secretly put cameras to spy what she was doing. Turns out that she was crazy. She was stabbing the baby with a needle from time to time and doing things like shaking her cradle incredibly hard to torment her. Of course. They called the police. My aunt has a nanny cam and found my older cousin's babysitter playing blackjack with him. I have caught her making pillow forts that are heavily resistant to the monsters that may or may not come out during heavy thunderstorms with my kiddo. 20 minutes after bedtime. Needless to say, she was dealt with appropriately. I'm not a parent, rather the child, and I had this nanny. Or yaya as we would call it. It became useless because she soon found out and kept unplugging the camera. It turns out she was slowly stealing money from my family. We fired her. I was the child and there weren't any nanny cams, but my parents had left a small bucket of toys and things to keep me busy, and they hired a babysitter to watch me while they both had to take overtime at work and knew they would be gone most of the day. The babysitter moved that bucket of toys to another room, put me in a crib and proceeded to go off and read or something, and left me there for hours with nothing to do. Only coming back to check on me or feed me. My parents came back to me just sadly sitting in my crib. Indoor cameras hooked up to the same unit as the outdoor cams. Husband was walking to his study. Saw the giant huntsman spider, Australian here, and screamed like a little girl and jumped away. Needless to say, I bolted to the computer to watch the playback on repeat for a few minutes. I laughed so hard I had an asthma attack. I think that was the first time he ever called me a CNT, sarcastically I will add. She stole a single puzzle piece of what we were trying to solve. Saw her put it in her pocket. Final straw was one of our F-King potted plants. What I learned today. I'm glad I stopped babysitting before cameras became a thing. A couple I sat for had adorable kids. But the dad had one room in the house devoted to a full model railroad setup. Dozens of trains. Bridges. Teeny villages. The works. After they went to bed. And during that long boring stretch before the parents came home. I just play with the train set. Only regret is that I couldn't toot the horns because the kids would have busted me. Not a parent and not a nannicum. But my uncle once set up a wildlife camera, the ones that hunters use, to get a photo if something happened in my great-grandmother's apartment. She was very demented, so she told us incoherent stories about how there were people there, stealing all her liquor and chocolates. Turns out she was the one who stole the goodies. But we also found out her other son, my other uncle who no one has contact with due to his shady actions with his wife, had a key to the apartment and was regularly visiting at midnight to steal some jewelry. Friends of ours don't have kids but have dogs. They were going out of town and told the dog sitter about all of the cameras, including the one that is outside but sometimes picks up reflections and will actively notify them of motion. The dog sitter seemed to get it, but she forgot to convey that to her boyfriend, who came out and walked around naked quite a bit. The dogs were naked. 2. Fair's fair. I was the eye caught in camera a few times. 1. A family who had bunnies caught me on camera booping noses to the beat of the song I was singing. Little bunny foo-foo hopping through the kitchen, picking up all the letters and munchy munchy munch. 2. A different family saw me get F-King tackled by their 95 pounds Mastiff puppy. And they immediately called me to make sure I didn't have a concussion, since I just kinda laid there for a while. I was fine. I just got the wind knocked out of me. 3. Yet another different family saw me reading a book to their kids, and later complimented all the voices I make. I had no idea they could hear audio and I got so embarrassed. When I was around 12 years old, my parents caught my babysitter on camera stealing minors' games and shoving them into her pants and shirt. They confronted her about it and she kept denying it until Ninja Gaiden fell out of her pant leg. My mom took her into a room and made take out all the games she stole. She literally had games shoved under the strap of her bra on her back so that she could sneak them out of the house. And others were put inside the waistband of her underwear. She must have really thought about this for a while. Anyway, we got the games back and she was sent home without pay. I dog sit for some neighbors, one of which told me she has a camera in the living room dining room for her dogs. You know those ones that dispense treats? Anyways, I thought it was a strange essential oil diffuser until she told me what it was. I was being paid to play with them for an hour, but she found out that I was actually staying for 2 or 3 hours. When she asked me about it, I think I said something like I'd want someone to do the same for my dog. She leaves you treats? You're now also her dog. She picked up our pug Dudgy and was dancing around the living room with him while that "Hey, I Just Met You" song was playing. My uncle told me this once when a babysitter was holding his daughter, my older cousin, when she was a baby. The baby was playing with her toys and she somehow swallowed a small piece of something and the babysitter performed the Heimlich, but for babies. There's a version of that for babies IDK where I found it though. She saved my cousin and her family was thankful. They have no idea where the babysitter is now, but right now she's supposed to be around her late 40s. Edit 1. I asked my uncle about this and apparently they know where the babysitter is. She is in California and she is a very well paid doctor and makes over $310K a year. Physician. That's the only thing he knows since she left. Edit 2. Thank you for the silver. Kind stranger. Not a nanny cam, but the video baby monitor managed to catch our than 1 5-month-old projectile vomiting on me. And then straight up into the mouth and on the face of my husband 2 minutes later. When she put my daughter down for her nap, she took a nap on the bed next to her. Edit. This isn't a bad thing at all. Different beds. 2-year girl who still needs a 90-minute power nap in the middle of the day. I used to babysit the world's greatest kiddo. And the parents actually encouraged me to nap alongside the child. Literally the best naps ever. Caught the babysitter masturbating on our couch. The babysitter was still my female cousin. I figured the best thing was to just say nothing. Save the awkwardness. She did it a fair amount. I then mentioned our house cam by accident some months later and her face dropped. I realized what I'd said, then casually threw in that I'd never checked it again. To save the awkwardness. A colleague of mine saw that. When his 8-month-old baby cried, the nanny just ignored him and kept watching reality TV, not paying any attention to him while he bawled his eyes out. She did not attempt to console him or anything. She just tried to hear the TV. There were a few other troubling instances too. Like she'd say they went on a brief stroll but disappeared for hours with no explanation. Or she didn't follow the parents' instructions on how to put him to sleep and let him cry. And my colleague realized that the baby was anxious and desperate every time the nanny arrived. Heartbreaking really. Sitting on our couch playing with the dogs like we paid them to. I have a nanny cam for the purpose of creeping my dog while I'm at work. But it's how I discovered my former superintendent was coming into my apartment randomly to steal a nug from my jar of weed. I'm in Canada. Weed is legal. Friend caught hers rummaging through her closet and stealing a blouse. She confronted her about it when she returned home. And the woman played innocent. She was wearing the F-King blouse. We hired a dog sitter over the Thanksgiving holidays to check on the pooch, feed the cats, get the mail, etc. Edit. Def pointed out the various security cams to her. She asked if she could bring her sister along for company. We said sure. No problem. The sister, we found out in conversation, attends a nearby hyper-conservative fundamentalist school. When the hired sitter took the dog out and the fundy sister had the house to herself, she took the opportunity to scream "Foo-woo-woo-woo" at the top of her lungs a few times. Not a lot else. Just paced around the living room dropping high decibel F-bombs. Go to find some way to vent that fundy angst.